This is Robert Capuccio. Welcome to the Self-Help Antidote, a weekly dose of reason, perspective, and insight, where we challenge conventional thinking and explore authentic strategies and insights around personal transformation. Our commitment to you is to bring you some of the world's leading experts in the domains of fitness, wellness, coaching, and behavior change, separating fact from fallacy. Okay, so I am on my second book by Clifton and Harder from the Gallup organization. The first one I read was Well-Being at Work, which was astonishing. And the second one I'm reading right now is It's the Manager. I would highly recommend both of these books. And there's a lot of intersections between the two. So one of the things that really impressed upon me when I read Well-Being at Work is that according to over 100 million interviews by the Gallup organization in nearly 200 nations across the world, representing a full 98% of the world's population, the number one factor that influences somebody's level of well-being is basically their job satisfaction. And then in the next book, it talks about how infrequently that's occurring, and that's a crisis. According to the authors and their data, fully 79% of people in organizations are not engaged. And there's a huge portion of people who are actively disengaged. And that's a threat not only to economies of multiple nations, national security, but to the well-being of the millions of people working within those organizations. And according to Clifton and Harder, one of the preeminent strategies to turn this trend around is leadership over management, where managers cannot simply manage processes, but they need to adapt coaching-based strategies as part of their leadership initiative and how they engage and inspire and direct the actions of the people that they work with in their organizations. I thought, wow, that's amazing, because this podcast is loosely a coaching podcast. It's based on coaching practices and at the very least coaching perspectives. And, those of you who have been listening for a while, you'll see that theme. So I wanted to just basically address some of the questions that have been asked around coaching and discuss why coaching is not only critical to effective leadership, but what makes coaching so powerful, so effective, as opposed to just simply telling people what it is to do. So joining me today again is my lovely wife, Ami Ade, and she's just going to be helping me out and fielding some of the questions that I'm asked nearly every week. I wouldn't say every day somebody's asking this, but at least every week, one or more of these questions pop up. Hey, Amy.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Good. Okay, so I have a whole list of questions that I got from your website stuff. Anyway, the first one I have here says, what are some of the evidence-based theories that are involved in coaching?
Okay, before I even answer that, I think it's important to mention that there are many evidence-based theories that I'm not going to touch upon here. And there are also a lot of theories that are incorporated into coaching that seem to lack empirical evidence, but I'm not really going to get into that. What I'm going to do is get into some of the more common ones that I use within my coaching practice and why I think they're so effective. So, coaching is effective due to a whole array of psychological and social dynamics and how it leverages those. So affiliation theory, which was made popular by Dr. David McClellan, explains that we get a motivational boost from having a sense of belonging, whether that is belonging to a community, belonging to a team, belonging to a certain organization and what it stands for. Belonging is powerful if you're trying to motivationally engage people like you would be within a workforce. And social proof highlights the influence of peer behaviors and also utilizes social cognitive theories, vicarious experience, to kind of underscore the learning benefits from observing other people. Like what happens when you're on a team with people who are at your level, or hopefully even a little bit better, and you can observe them in conversation, observe them in practice, doing what they do. So even when you have like a single participant within the team that's not being coached at that very moment, they're vicariously being coached when they watch you as the leader coach other people. So, I mean, what that environment allows for is learning, growth, and development of members at various stages of readiness. So if you take a look at the word education, because a lot of people say, well, when you're training people, your job is to educate them. And I'm all for training. Training is what you put into somebody. It's information, it's knowledge. It's like, do this in this order. And it's not coaching. It's not coaching at all, but it's valuable. But at some point, really pulling out expertise and education deals with a shift from what you put in to what you intentionally withdraw or pull out from people. So if you look at the root word of education itself, it comes from adducere, which means to draw out or to lead out. And that's what makes coaching powerful. So when you couple this with something like peer support, diverse perspectives, and an interactive learning environment, coaching starts to create a powerful mechanism for both personal and professional development through the enhancement of well-being, first of all, because when we have a sense of purpose, it impacts our wellness. And I'm not going to get into this, but it does impact the chances that we will consistently engage in wellness-based practices. And it also offers a comprehensive medium to improve in every area of your life and work that matter to you. So let's get into evidence-based theories. So coaching has to be based by theories that are tested over time. And when you take a look at the theories that I'm going to talk about, each contributes a unique insight as to why they work effectively. Now key among these theories includes, but is no way limited to, motivational interviewing, appreciative inquiry, self-determination theory, social cognitive theory, and things like the trans-theoretical model of change, which you've probably heard me talk about one or all of these at some point on the podcast.
So could I ask you to just quickly define some of them? Like what is motivational interviewing, appreciative inquiry, those, just so at least we kind of have an idea of what you mean, and then we can extrapolate that for ourselves and look out for that in our coaching experiences?
Yeah, of course. I'm getting there because I'm a big fan. I'm actually really glad you asked that question because that's a question that comes up a lot. So simply put, what are these theories? Let's start with a common one that has been tested extensively and in many different contexts with many different populations. And that would be motivational interviewing, which was created by William J. Miller and then Stephen Rolnick, both brilliant contributors in the world of coaching. So motivational interviewing can be defined as something that is client-centered. In other words, it's about the client and their needs and not necessarily your agenda or your methodology. And this is a guided method for enhancing intrinsic motivation to change by exploring and resolving ambivalence. Before I go into why that works, let me just unpack a couple of things. What do I mean by ambivalence? Ambivalence is when you sincerely desire two things, but they're in conflict with one another. So a lot of times in self-help, if somebody says they desire something, like I really want weight loss, but what they engage in is, Haagen-Dazs or Ben & Jerry's, you start to come up with all sorts of simplified reasons why they're not being congruent with their stated outcomes. Well, they're lazy, or, they're not motivated enough, or yeah, of course you want, the reward of weight loss, but you're not willing to put in the work because you're seeking comfort. And we start to create all these stories where ambivalence says, no, there's something you really want in the Haagen-Dazs, and it's not necessarily the ice cream. Like, we just adopted a cat. He's lovely, a little bit rambunctious, but lovely. But let's say we also sincerely wanted a canary. Well, those two things don't go together. Bad things are bound to happen. So it's not that we're dishonest about wanting the canary. We really want one and we really want a cat, but we understand, okay, those two things need to be, are in conflict. So that internal conflict that creates barriers to the forward momentum that allows us to achieve our goals, like that is ambivalence. And in motivational interviewing, we utilize intrinsic motivation to help resolve some of those ambivalence issues or conflict issues. And why this works in a coaching setting is because motivational interviewing helps participants articulate their goals and recognize discrepancies between their current behaviors and their desired outcomes. Okay, yes, I really do want to lose weight, but what I'm doing right now, even though there's a reason why I'm doing it, and there's something that I want beyond just the taste of the food that I'm choosing, it may not be aligned or supportive of that outcome. And that allows us to build commitment to change because they're the ones that are coming up with those commitments, not simply following what we think they should be committed to. And the coaching dynamic allows for shared experiences and collective problem solving, which can amplify motivation because it amplifies ownership and it deeply roots the person into what their motives are for seeking change in the first place. So when you're a coach or a leader and you're in a supportive environment that encourages open dialogue and helping individuals feel understood, you also empower them to take action. Now, when we're talking about coaching and leadership, we're utilizing the same spirit, intentions, and principles, but it might be a little bit more directive, where a lot of times when we're in a coaching situation in motivational interviewing, it becomes more guided. So think about hiring a tour guide to go through a journey through a new city. You're not going to rock up and go, okay, I've never been to this country before, never been to this city before, and I'm really interested in learning. And they're not going to go, well, where do you want to go first? I'll just take you there. Well, I don't really know. But they're also not going to dictate, well, we're going to go here, and then you need to go here. They're going to ask questions. And based on that, they're going to guide you through your goals, your needs, your wants, your abilities, and all of the individual aspects that make this trip unique to you. But they're not going to necessarily follow your every whim because you don't really have a context to lay out how that experience would work, if that makes sense. Second one is appreciative inquiry. Now, the theory behind appreciative inquiry is that it focuses on identifying and leveraging an organization's or an individual's strengths, successes, and what does that do in terms of their potential to over time foster change. And here's why I believe it works. Because appreciative inquiry, or AI for short, not to be confused with artificial intelligence, although who knows how those two are going to meet in the future, but I digress. But it's a coaching strategy that emphasizes positive questioning and exploration of what is working well for the clients. So when you take a look at the research, because here's another, I think, fallacious management perspective. I'm going to spend most of my time identifying and helping you work on your weaknesses. What the research shows is that's not very effective. People very rarely are able to dramatically improve their weaknesses. And when you focus all of your attention, or their attention, even worse, on improving their weaknesses, you could elevate their level of performance from poor to mediocre, but you're never going to have them go to excellence or perform in a way that's outstanding. In order to do that, you take their natural strengths. You help them, recognize the context and the environments in which they're utilizing them, and you give them the growth and development by investing in them so they can expand those strengths over time. That's how people produce results that are remarkable. And the power of a dynamic team is not everybody shares the same strengths. So when you have people that share a common vision, but they don't share the same strengths, one another's strengths can compensate for weaknesses on the team, if that makes sense. So this strength-based approach creates a powerful, positive team dynamic that helps people build confidence and envision successful outcomes by collectively identifying and discussing their strengths and what they're noticing. So participants start to come together and create a shared vision of success, which enhances motivation and engagement. Another common theory that I utilize in coaching is self-determination theory, which basically asserts that people are motivated to grow and change by an integration of, or what we can call, better yet, an arc of motivation. An arc of motivation is an acronym for autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And this works because coaching satisfies these needs directly and effectively. Autonomy is supported by allowing the people on your team to have a say in setting their own goals and making their own decisions. And competence is built through skill development. Competence and confidence are interrelated. And when they're not, bad things happen. If my confidence exceeds my competence, I'm going to overestimate myself, and I'm not going to even notice when I'm making critical errors. And I'm not going to put in the work in my development that's required because I'm going to think I have more ability than I do. But when competence elevates, it usually has a proportional and a highly powerful correlation to confidence. So when you have someone who is constantly developing, but then on top of that, they're getting feedback from their coach, that accelerates that process. And it also cultivates what DC and Ryan, the pioneers behind self-determination theory, would call relatedness. And that's fostered through social connections and support from the person who's coaching you. In this case, the leader. And it's almost a cliche, but the late, great Zig Ziglar was fond of saying this: nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So when you meet these needs, it leads to enhanced intrinsic motivation and sustained engagement in the coaching process. And just a couple of more theories that I want to talk about. One is social cognitive theory. We mentioned this before. And social cognitive theory was developed by, again, the late, great Albert Bandura, and it emphasizes the importance of observational learning, imitation, and modeling in behavior change. And why it works in coaching is because participants are guided by the observation of other people on their teams, how they execute on strategies, the successes of their peers, and how their mentors in any given situation can get to be the hero on a weekly basis. And who that hero is on the team shifts. And, based on the context of the win and the project, each person can move into that position at different times. Vicarious learning helps people build self-efficacy and confidence. What I mean by self-efficacy is it's your inward belief in your ability to initiate and perpetuate a series of actions that support an outcome. So when you do that, it elevates your capacity to achieve similar outcomes. And coaching provides opportunity for things like role-playing and social interactions that absolutely reinforce learning and behavior change. And, there's also the trans-theoretical model of change. If coaching is about helping people develop and change, and by doing so, achieve intrinsically important or commonly shared outcomes, then we have to talk about the trans-theoretical model, which is what are the stages of change that people go through in a given area, and why is that important? Understanding where they are within each one of those phases as an individual, sometimes where individuals are as a team within the trans-theoretical model. And it basically just outlines those stages, which is pre-contemplation, which is simplified as, well, I don't want to do this, or I see the value in this, but I can't. Contemplation, I might do this. Preparation, I will, but not right this second. Action is when they engage in an activity, right? With the first 6 months, they're actually engaged in that change process. Maintenance, which is when they've been engaged in this pattern of behavior that's supportive of the outcome goals you're looking for more than 6 months. And then termination, where now this isn't a stage of change we're in. It's like, this is who we are. Like, in this organization, we do things like this. We engage in these actions, these behaviors, and we do it like with and on behalf of one another. And that's the power of understanding where people are in that model and helping them navigate through it. So why this works is because the trans-theoretical model effectively addresses individuals at different stages of change by providing tailored support interventions. And, so let's say, for example, that somebody in the contemplation stage might benefit from crafting and creating a success story from those in the action and maintenance stages, right? So I'm looking to, I keep using weight loss and dating because everybody can relate to that. So it's not like, oh, that doesn't pertain to me. We've all had that goal. But it's like, let's say I want to lose weight, but what I'm really good at is relationships. And I've been married happily for 30 years. Well, what have you done to create that happy marriage, in the action, maintenance, and you're probably in the termination stage? And how does that motivate you? And how do you use those skills, those intrinsic attributes and those strengths to move forward in weight loss? And it's highly effective. And the coaching environment allows for diverse experience and stages of change to all be represented. And it provides a comprehensive support system that can adapt to each participant's needs. And so, again, this is not an exhaustive list, but this covers a couple of theories that I think serve the coaching relationship very well.
Okay, cool. So then, what would you say are the benefits of integrating these theories that you just outlined and expanded upon for us? What are the benefits of integrating these theories into coaching as we know coaching to be?
I would say that the benefits are very, very good. I'm joking. Okay, well, I mean, one is when you step into a coaching situation, people engage in coaching for themselves, but not necessarily by themselves. So what you have anytime you're in a situation, it could be one-on-one or it could be group coaching, right? The leader coaching their entire team at the same time. You're developing synergy and comprehensive support. By integrating these theories and coaching kind of creates this holistic support system that addresses various aspects of human motivation and behavior change. And what's kind of cool about that is all of the participants at the same time benefit from increased motivation and maybe not I'm experiencing an increase in motivation, but I'm witnessing it. So going back to vicarious experience, that does impact me, whether I want it to or not. So sometimes I was like, well, I'm not motivated by watching other. Yeah, you kind of are. Like if you did a blood test before and after, your biochemistry would tell you something different. So through things like motivational interviewing and appreciative inquiry, for example, we focus on intrinsic motivations and strengths. So when I'm coaching Mary on my team around her intrinsic motivations and strengths and how she can use it in her scenario, what's going on in your head? You're going through that same process, imagining the same for yourself. So coaching one person is coaching all people. Enhanced learning and development. So if you take a look at social cognitive theory, observational learning gives you a chance to go out and model somebody, right? If there's someone on your team who's doing something that you want to be able to do, you can look at how many times have we looked at someone giving a speech and it's like, I think I could do that. And you imagine yourself giving a speech or doing something like, let's say, when we first moved out to LA, do you remember this? Like I got a bike and I was riding a bike and you were watching me ride a bike and you're like, wait, I can model that. And then you never had a bike before.
Yeah, I remember that. You ended up buying me a powder blue bike and actually teaching me how to ride a bike. Yep, I remember that experience.
And that was brilliant because she would watch me do it and then I would teach her, which I never knew I knew how to teach someone how to ride a bike. She did crash a couple of times, so I don't think I was that great a teacher, but I guess that's part of the process, right? Get back on the bike. That's the whole point, right? Yeah. Analogy for life. But then she would watch me and then she would also use those observational skills to further augment the learning process. You get to do that when you're in a group. You're in a supportive environment. So let's say you're using something like self-determination theory by DC and Ryan and the trans-theoretical model. Well, these two models combined together emphasizes the importance of social support and understanding individual stages of change. And ultimately, what people talk about a lot is a sense of empowerment. I hate to use the E word, but it's relevant here. And self-efficacy. It's promoted through all of these theories. Like, I am starting to see evidence from the way I'm engaging with my group, the way my coach is engaging with me, and these little micro experiments I'm doing, that I'm capable. I am capable, not because somebody told me, hey, you got to believe in yourself. What the hell do I do with that? But because I've gone out and I've done experiments as a result of coaching that have given me evidence to support my belief in myself. That is a different animal right there. And, participants get to gain confidence and a sense of autonomy in their own personal growth journeys. And that is magnified when they get to choose how they approach achieving a vision, but you're all collectively working towards the same vision together. It's just so powerful.
Yeah, really, I agree. Okay, so I have another question that I kind of pulled from one of your folks who wrote in after reading your newsletter. Okay, so this one says, why is coaching different from other learning environments? And I think I kind of understand where this question is coming from, because even though coaching is not necessarily training or teaching, like you said, it is a form of learning, right? So why is coaching different from other learning environments?
Yeah, I mean, any change has to be preceded by learning. There's always behavior change must come before experiencing a life change, and behavior change involves changes in the brain, and learning and development. It involves you becoming, to a small or large degree, a different person than you were before you got on that journey. I mean, I think that's the whole point of the meta myth. Joseph Campbell's The Hero Journey. You look at the hero in the beginning of the story, they're a very different person. Or Les Brown used to say I think he still does say it a lot. He says, if you want to become someone you want to do something you've never done before, you must first become someone you've never been before. And I think coaching embodies that more than any other environment. In traditional learning environments, information is disseminated from the teacher to the student in a hierarchical fashion. I have something that you don't, that you need to have or want to have, and you need to get it from me rather than from you. And by the way, in certain contexts, that is very effective, right? So teaching works. It's not necessarily coaching, but the question wasn't, why is coaching better? Why is it different was, I think, the question. So a teacher has something that the student does not yet possess, yet they really want it or need it. And in a partnership environment, which is a coaching environment by contrast, the evidence-based theories of practices like motivational interviewing, appreciative inquiry, self-determination, and all the other things that we had mentioned earlier, they support the effectiveness of coaching because each theory contributes unique elements that enhance direct motivation, where the person helps guide themselves and has ownership over the process of learning and behavior change. And that creates not only a comprehensive learning environment when you combine these theories together, but a supportive environment. And safety is the key. Again, I'm not going to go into this, but Project Aristotle, which was named after the philosopher Aristotle, who asserted that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, was a deep immersive study launched by the Google organization. And what they wanted to find out was, out of all the top performing teams in their organization, who performed the very best. And it's kind of weird. They just couldn't Google the answer. But after doing deeply immersive analysis and interviews with 200 of their top performing teams globally, they found that psychological safety, right, popularized by Amy Edmondson, was one of the most highest contributing factors to that high performance, because people could come together and discuss ideas and vicariously learn from one another. And it wasn't like, oh, I don't want to show that I don't really know something, or I don't want to voice an opinion that's unpopular. The group was interested not in who's right, but what's right. It was about the mission. It was highly guided by mission and purpose. And that's powerful. So when you leverage strengths of all these theories, coaching facilitates significant and sustained sense of group well-being in support of personal and professional development. Everybody is invested and engaged in one another's development, which means they exponentially accelerate it. So I was reading a book back in September by Mo Gawat, and it was called Scary Smart. And it's on the evolution of AI, not appreciative inquiry. This time, I'm really talking about artificial intelligence. It's one of the reasons why AI is going to advance in a staggeringly fast manner is because anywhere in the world an AI learns something, they all learn it instantly. That's kind of the same as a coaching environment. The second one person learns something, everybody learns it. So, but the difference is when people are at different skill levels that challenge each other within the group, and one person learns something, your experience with what they're saying, even especially if it's not the exact experience, right? There's points of differentiation there. You have an opinion about it, and it grants you an insight. So you learn from an experience of someone else in the group at the same time everyone else is learning, but then you offer an insight that then accelerates that learning again. And somebody else connects with so you see how this is going exponentially. And that's just something that doesn't occur in a lot of other environments.
Gotcha. I really like that explanation. Okay, so another question that I found here was, it says, what are the main areas of focus in the process, and why does it work? So I think maybe they're talking about this process that you basically explained to us about coaching, like different theories and how you apply them. They want to know what are the main areas of focus in this system of process, and why you believe this main area of focus works.
Okay, yeah. So what do you focus on, like within coaching? Okay, that makes sense. I don't know if they're talking about like the outline of a coaching session, or like what are the big rocks? You know that story about the teacher with the glass jar, on her table, and there's like she puts all the big rocks in, and it's like there's still anyway. So what are the big rocks within coaching? Before I just jump into that, so I think the coaching process that I use, that I find highly effective, as well as the feedback says it's engaging, due to the fact that it's comprehensive as well as strategic, focuses on, and also, I don't want to not mention, also based on empirical evidence. I strongly believe, like, where has this been tested? And what's the validity? But anyway, before I get back on my soapbox, it's a focus on values. What is important to each individual and the group? Once you have values, you can go ahead and create a vision. Okay, what does success look like in the future? What are the outcome goals? What are we looking to accomplish together? And what are the behaviors and the habits within the process that addresses the psychological, emotional, and neurobiological aspects of change? And by doing that, creates long-term sustainable habits that support the outcomes that we're all trying to achieve together, so that we can collectively move towards our vision of what good looks like in the future. So as a team, we are aligned with and living our highest values and meaning, which supports purpose, engagement, motivation, and so on and so forth. So let's focus on values, right? Why is that important? One is strength identification. According to Dr. Morton Seligman, by exploring our values, we get to uncover our personal and professional strengths. And this serves as the foundation for growth and development, right? Focusing on elevating your weaknesses is probably not going to be as powerful in the long run, to say the least, as what are my strengths and how do I magnify those? That's where you're going to have the biggest contribution. Understanding what truly matters to the people that you're coaching. That, when they identify what truly matters, that creates clarity, that creates motivation, and that makes the coaching process not only more personalized, even in a group setting, but more meaningful. And that is what drives long-term behavioral adherence and positive emotional states. You know, when we discuss values and we talk about the positive emotions and the experiences that we're in when we're living in alignment with our values, it triggers a polyvagal response, which activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and that promotes calm and social engagement. That allows us to think better and even engage better with the people in our group. So the physiological response enhances, like, all of the people in the coaching cohorts' receptiveness to change and their ability to powerfully connect with other people. And I think that's critical. Self-efficacy becomes another point. So self-efficacy is reflecting on our past and current successes, and that bolsters our belief in our ability to succeed. And this kind of confidence in the group is critical for going ahead and setting and achieving even bigger goals, because it empowers the individuals to take on challenges and persist in the face of obstacles. Let's talk about vision. Strategic vision is about moving beyond the problem. A lot of people get stuck on the problem, like, oh, why are we stuck? And what's going on at corporate? And, why don't we have any power? And I'm not saying these things are not relevant. They are. But when you create a powerful vision, you help people within your team shift their focus from being stuck in their current problem to imagining a future of possibilities. Now, this future thinking perspective activates the mesolimbic system, which is involved in motivation. And it also fosters learning, resilience, and hope. So let's talk about resilience. So when you have a really well-crafted vision, where you can ask anybody on the team, what's our vision? And they could come back and tell you with synergy and clarity, it encourages those participants to envision overcoming difficulties at some point in the future. So you're at a point in the future where you're no longer stuck in your current difficulties, and that builds psychological resilience. And that's essential for navigating setbacks as well as, maintaining progress towards goals. And when you set an outcome goal, like this is what has to happen in order to achieve this, one, you set direction, right? So there's a clear direction and purpose that everybody's aligned with. So people can now be focused and motivated, and it acts like a roadmap, basically, guiding everyone's actions and decisions based on where we're looking to go. So we have congruency. And when we have that clarity and congruency, people are accountable, right? You've set specific measurable goals, and now your team has a sense of accountability, not just with themselves, but with one another. And that self-accountability drives commitment, follow through, and it's essential for long-term behavior change. And I think one thing that if you've been in management or leadership that you have run into is decreased reactance. So what that means is that clear goals that people had a hand in creating decrease the resistance people have when they think they're being controlled. Like even our new cat, like we've trained him to sit before a meal. He loves doing that. But if we try to force him to do it, well, he gets a little bit catty about the whole thing. So even like the cat resists being controlled and manipulated, if that makes sense. And then we have behavior change and habit formation. So when you take a look at behavior change and the creation of habits, one thing is learning and neuroplasticity. If you're going to change your life or you're going to change your work or your culture, you need to change your brain. And that is identifying and adapting new behaviors that facilitates that neuroplasticity and the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. And that's critical to not only learning, but adapting new ways of thinking and acting, which in today's world, more than anything, is so important. Supporting constructive habits, ensures that, positive changes are sustained over time and that these changes become automatic, which kind of reduces the cognitive load, making it easier to maintain progress, like brushing your teeth,
Brushing your teeth indeed. Okay, that was really helpful. So then the follow-up question to that was then, how do we put coaching into a strategy that works for us? Like we learn all these things, we get comfortable with the idea of coaching, and then we're like, okay, what now? Basically, like, how do we put coaching into a strategy that works for us, or that works in general?
Well, how do I know? Anyway, so how do we put coaching into a strategy that works? Well, I think, integrating values identification, right? Vision creation, goal setting. When you start to address these things in conversation, talking to people, like on my team, we're currently right now in the values creation. Like, what is important to you, and what do you observe in the team that identifies the values? So there are aspirational values, like what are the values that we want to demonstrate and emulate in the future? And if somebody were to look at this team for about a week and we would ask them, what do you think this team values most? What do you think that they would say based on what they're observing? So you have the neurobiological facilitation of learning, focusing on specific behaviors and habit formation, right? So what are you noticing as an example of what good looks like? How often are you, this comes like from the 1 Minute Manager way back in the day, are you catching people doing things right on your team? A lot of times traditionally we catch somebody doing something wrong and we give them coaching, which isn't coaching. We tell them what they did wrong and how we want them to fix it, rather than are you catching them doing it right and have them share with the team how they did it right so everybody else learns. Supporting constructive habits. Like one time at a team meeting, I got the team so off track. And someone on my team, I'm not going to mention her name, but I'm so proud of her. She's like, hey, Bobby, this might be important to discuss, but you had said that you wanted to cover this. And I think right now, you are at risk of derailing the meeting's agenda. I was like, oh, wow, she just held me so accountable. So she's supporting the constructive habit of staying on task, and she's holding me accountable to things that I've said. And I love that, because that's what happens when the coaching environment is working well. So, you could have a holistic approach, which considers the whole person, right? When you're sitting down with somebody, not just the job, but what's important to them cognitively, what's important to them emotionally, behaviorally, what about their family? Talk about like socially, and how does getting really good at what they need to do on the job support them in other areas? In other words, being interested in people on your team as a human being without being invasive, obviously, not just an employee, right? Because that will create investment in you that will allow you to demonstrate being skills that are far more important than what you're actually doing or what technique you're using in coaching. It's every time you coach, it's got to be human-centered. You've got to align with your group's values and vision. It's got to be focused on helping them. It's like, I'm here to help the company achieve its goals. Well, let's take Richard Branson, who's been a big advocate of this. I know I've worked for CEO Mark Smith. I've mentioned him on the call, and he believed, and I embrace this. If you've hired the right people and you have done your job of clearly, not clarely. Claire has nothing to do with this. I don't want to involve her unfairly, but clearly identifying the purpose of the work, what the vision of the company is, and what we're trying to accomplish every day. If you've done that, if you support people, you focus on your employees first, guess what? They'll take care of supporting your customer. They'll take care of supporting your company. By not focusing on them, you are not doing any favors to your customer base. I've heard that argument. No, Bobby, our customers are most important, not our people. The purpose of this company is to support them. Well, guess what? if you are not supporting your customers, I mean, I know everybody's had the experience of flying on an airplane where you thought, do these people actually hate me? And the answer is most likely yes. The employees of that airline absolutely hate you because they're probably mistreated and not put first versus the legendary period, the golden age of Southwest Airlines under Herb Kelleher. You usually got treated very well on that airline. If there was a problem, they solved it engagingly and creatively because they were the most important aspect of their organization and they passed that on to you, right? So that's really all I'll kind of like say about that. And, you know, yes, grounded in evidence-based principles. I know I'm always on my soapbox about that. But if you're constantly working to get better yourself, you're constantly researching and learning about what makes a great coach, I think this is the key. You got to care about your people. It's an act of truly caring. And I think that it's not a strategic initiative, but it matters. It makes all the difference in the world. Because if you don't care, implementing any other practice eventually is going to create more cynicism than it will forward momentum, and rightfully so. That's the best answer I have for that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Thank you. So the last question I have here, and it's something that I also have thought about because, I mean, I've taken therapy, for mental health care, and I've had the experience of doing group therapy as well as one-on-one therapy and noticed, a difference in that. So with coaching, this question here is basically they simply said, what about group coaching? So I think they're asking how effective group coaching is. So can you speak on that? What about group coaching?
I'm a big fan of group coaching. A lot of times when we think of coaching, we think about one-on-one, right? So I have, I'm an executive coach, well-being coach, life coach. I've got a single client. And then when people start to talk about the benefits of group coaching, they usually talk about, it's a more affordable price. Okay, great. That is definitely a benefit. Or how it impacts the coach is through greater scalability and less risk of burnout and all that. And all that's very, very important. But to borrow from, Steve Martin, I think the first question is, how do I get good? And how do I create a greater benefit for the participant, the employee, the client? I think group coaching has a lot of strong advantages. One, again, it leverages peer support and accountability. So group coaching fosters that accountability amongst participants because everyone becomes mutually invested as the group starts to form. And this kind of happens like through the Tuckman model. You form the group, you start to set the parameters. The next phase is conflict, which is really good, storming, right? And then norming. Everybody settles into their roles. And then finally, you're getting an exponential result in the final aspect, which is performing. Obviously, the last aspect is technically adjourning when the group no longer needs to meet. But when you take a look at research by Solomon Asch or David McClellan and his work on affiliation theory, they both basically assert that when people are in a group together, their beliefs and behaviors strongly influence one another. So if people are in a group with people that they admire and respect, and they want to become more like them, those shared goals and collective progress encourages everybody in that group to stay committed. And they're doing it not only for themselves, but on behalf of one another. So peer support is powerful because it provides emotional backing. It makes the journey towards personal and professional growth less daunting. There have been studies where they would take people to, I know the reference on this normally. I don't know why it's not coming to me right now. Forgive me. But they would take them to the bottom of a hill with kind of like a steep grade. And they would ask people to rate the difficulty and the percentage of grade of the hill. And people go, okay, well, I could see that's probably a 25% grade. And, it's probably on a scale from 1 to 10, like an 8. And then they would have them walk that hill with people that they like and trust, someone like a friend, and they would predict the hill before they embarked on it as being less difficult with a lower grade. And I think that perception is amazing. Speaking of perceptions, diversity of perspectives. The group setting brings together individuals with common interests but varied experiences and viewpoints. And this diversity leads to richer discussions and much more innovative solutions to problems. Participants benefit from the collective wisdom in the group, which provides new insights and alternative strategies. So I was in a group coaching orientation with people I'm not going to mention, but they're at the top of their industry. And basically what they said is, I don't want to be in a group with people who are in the same sport as me. It's like, because I'm going to have the same conversations with the people who think the same. And, we're going to the same conference. I want somebody in a different sport because they're going to look at the world very different. And I'm like, wow, that is amazing. Someone who's open to group perspectives like that. So you provide an enhanced learning environment, I think, in groups because it sets a dynamic for interactive learning. And you have greater opportunity for role playing, which you do one-on-one, but group discussion. There is greater input around reflection and more diversified collaboration that enhances understanding and the retention of these new concepts that you're bringing on to leverage to achieve what you want to achieve. Identity is a critical factor. Each person in the group has an opportunity to encourage and support other people. And this level of engagement shapes the perception of an individual group member as a mentor. And that supports long-term behavior change for the mentor because they have an identity to evolve into, and the other people because they feel that they are more deeply supportive, and that creates reciprocity. And the mentor is never one person. It could be multiple people in a single coaching session that step into the role of mentor and partnership. Each participant benefits, again, from learning the insights, the vicarious experiences, and strategies communicated by the entire group. So, I mean, those are some basics for me. I think those are critical things that make group coaching particularly unique.
That was awesome. That was the last of the questions I selected. So, if you have any final words to wrap it up for the audience, basically on coaching, why it matters, how we can implement it, basically in summary.
Well, when you said, do you have any final words? Thank you for adding on coaching. I thought, is there something I need to know that you're not telling me? But no, I don't. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's not. Coaching is used so ubiquitously. A lot of people use coaching and teaching and instructing kind of interchangeably. But coaching right now, the evidence is growing that you just can't tell people what to do and expect that if they don't do it the way you want them to do it, they're deficient. No, what works for other people works for us too. We have to find out what's effective for them. And for the role that we say we are committed to stepping into or living into, and go out and find as much resources and learning and other mentors that help us become the best leader we can be, the best trainer we can be, best manager we can be. And the evidence is showing that going from manager and coach is one of the greatest and most effective leadership initiatives that you can take. And it's exciting because it's opening up a new trend and a new dimension with tons of possibilities for the future. And that is all I have got to say about coaching.
Thank you.
Thank you, love. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Visit us at theselfhelpantidote.com to share your feedback, insights, and recommendations on what topics you'd like us to explore in the future.